Well, thank you very much for your warm welcome. And just grab this out of my pocket here. And particularly congratulations to Nathan, Robert and Yoko for your awards. Well done. I've been here a couple of years ago. So the ACODE, Australasian Council of Online Distance and E-Learning, came out to USP a couple of years ago, and we had our one of our annual meetings here. And we were delighted to come and be part of this institution for a while. We noticed some of the challenges you had in terms of the use of the diversity that you have around the islands and things like that, and we were all challenged at the time to think of ways in which we could contribute as part of a learning community, because ultimately that's what we are. We're part of the higher education learning community worldwide. We are not just islands to ourselves. We are part of a wider learning community, and as part of that wider learning community, we want to be involved with you, as we hope you want to be involved with us going forward. So first of all, I'm going to talk through a few concepts that I'll give you some context of the university I come from. I'm going to then talk through some concepts around the use of technologies to support students, and then finally look at some challenges we have going forwards in higher education generally, and some of the key trends we see happening within higher education within the global sector. So simply, we have just over 28,000 students. Only 7,000 of those, 7,500 of those are on campus. The remainder of those study externally and online. And about 6,000 international students, 1,000 of which are on campus. Every student accesses all their information online now. So probably about 2 years ago, we completely got rid of all print materials. At the time, that was seen as quite a bold move within our sector because most of our students were expecting the package, the print package, to roll up in the mail to them. Except you can't do new and innovative things when you're using an old way of doing things. So we've actually then got to think, and it's taken us quite a few years to come to the point where you can use technology to enhance your learning and teaching to the extent that you're not just reading PDFs online. Because that is the way a lot of universities initially made their transition. That's the way we made our transition to the online space 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. And we just stuck all the packages online and got people to print them out. That saved us a lot of money. We didn't have to send all the packages out. They were printing them. However, we do have campuses also, so we are also passionate about face-to-face teaching. We have campuses now. Toowoomba is our main campus, which sits 2,000 feet above sea level on the Great Dividing Range in Queensland, about 120 kilometres inland from Brisbane. We have campuses in Springfield and Ipswich, which are in that corridor between Brisbane and Toowoomba, and also a wine college, which is very pleasant, down in Stanthorpe, and also a campus in Sydney. Most students and staff, when they come to USQ, know what they're getting themselves in for. We have a reputation for online learning, distance learning, and particularly those who come to teach with us realise that they're not going to be teaching in the traditional face-to-face manner. There is quite an expectation for them to be very engaged in the online space. Some current strategies we're looking at, or have been implementing for a while, is that every course we have has an online presence. Now, when I say an online presence, that's just not a website sitting there. This actually means that there's something happening in that space for every course we offer. This is a really important strategy, one that we've seen incredible fruit from over the last few years. Every student has a named person they can get in touch with. That's not the lecturer for the course. That's a person who will follow them through the program that they're studying and be their first port of call for non-academic issues. So if I'm struggling, if student X is struggling with knowing where to find things, or what do I do about my enrolments or something like that, they actually have a named person they can get in touch with. That is incredibly powerful. the human touch is incredibly powerful within the distance and online space. They can actually have a relationship with somebody. Now those relations, we call them student relationship officers, I'll talk about them a bit more in a minute. However, they might have 400 or 500 people they're responsible for. That doesn't matter. The fact is the student has a named person they can get in touch with. We have minimum standards for all our courses. So, for example, all our courses have to have a welcome message. All our lecturers have to be involved in the environment at least on 3 occasions a week, answering discussion forums and posts and things like that, putting up information for the students. And all the inquiries, student inquiries, have to be answered within 48 hours of them coming. So, and that's the responsibility of the teacher to do that. They're the ones who are leading the students through their journey, their student learning journey. There are also some expectations and wireframes that we have, and I'll show you a couple of those in a few minutes. And I'm just going to move that little hand off that text there. It's just annoying me. We also use, similar to here, you have production teams and things like that. We have learning innovation teams that are made up of instructional designers, e-learning technologists and things. I won't deal too much with that. That's a fairly common thing now. Significant media enhancements, similar to yourselves. We have a very strong media crew, multimedia crew, and a strong focus on what we call the student learning journey, and creating for the students a personal learning environment to actually personalise their learning journey while they're working through their program. Also an increased emphasis recently on enabling staff, particularly as we moved away from that print mode to the fully online mode. So there's quite a step up in terms of what we need to provide to staff, the availability of help staff for those staff who are doing this, and also what I'll talk about in a little while is being part of that learning community. Just in terms of our systems, very simply, we use Moodle, as Colin alluded to before, and we have our student-facing Moodle, which is called the USQ Study Desk. So if you hear me talking about the Study Desk, that's our main Moodle environment. We have our USQ Staff Desk, which is a second version of Moodle, where we do all our training and all our playground areas. So any academic staff can have a playground course that they can set up and organise for themselves, and then we'll transfer that to the Study Desk for them if they'd like. And we also have a USQ Open Desk, a third instance of Moodle, which is used for our open education resources and our community-based courses, and for collaborative research opportunities across universities. Across the top of that, of course, we have our website, which we use Sitecore for, and a portal, which we use Drupal for, and more we'll see those technologies interoperating a lot more. Underneath there, all our learning resources are held in Aquella, so the LOR is the Learning Object Repository, and it uses a software called Aquella, and there's a range of collections we have within that environment. So we don't store files in our Moodle environment, we store files in the Aquella repository. And across there also we have our ePortfolio, Mahara ePortfolio, which becomes a fundamental plank in our personal learning environment. And so as students create their identity as professionals. So, I think one of the things we've spent a lot of time on over recent years is the way we do support and training. We probably had a similar model to you quite a few years back, where we had a whole lot of people working with academics, helping them create their packages. What we found was that this did not empower the academics to start pushing the boundaries in terms of their own thinking around how to teach their subject matter. So they very much fitted into the model. Here's your introductory book, and you'll write an introductory section, you'll talk about your assessment, and you'll give some hints and things like that. Here's your study schedule, you'll do this in this week, this week, this week, this week, you shall do this. And the study modules, of course, in week 1, week 2, week 3, you will work through your study modules. You'll do your selected readings. You'll do this quiz and things like that. And it was very regimented. And to some degree, that worked for students. And those who had the discipline to work that through were successful. However, we've moved quite substantially in that over the last 10, 12 years in relation to the use of the online space. So no longer do we want to have all that material online. We actually want to engage people in the online space in different ways, getting them working together through work-based learning, that kind of thing, and being able to personalise their learning to their journey. Not to a pre-stipulated way in which, to be a lawyer, you are going to do this. You have the 12 things you have to do to be a lawyer. That's fine. Or an engineer or a nurse and things like that. However, to go into the online space, you're now opened up to the world. You're opened up to the world of lawyers, a world of nurses, and a world of engineers. And they don't all do things in the same way. And we're learning that we're part of a global learning community. And to be part of that global learning community means we can operate in that global learning community once we get out of university. So to do that, we're trying to open up our mind a little bit more to the fact that it's not just bang, 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 bang. So there are a whole range of ways in which we do that, but one of the key things is around student support and staff support. So if we're going to go down that road, there is a context to learning that needs to be taught. So if we're talking staff and student support, there's a context in which they need to come in and operate in. That means there's also training associated with that. So if they're going to work in a context, we need to train them to work in that context. And then, of course, in learning and teaching, we need to think about the pedagogy of how we do that, and the newer pedagogies that we're talking about in the Web 2 environment. So we have that context for staff and students. And so we feel as though we need to provide these 5 areas of support. We need to provide context training for staff and students. We need to provide training in relation to the use of the systems. And of course, for the staff, we need to help train them in pedagogy as well. So not just, we obviously don't have to train the students how to teach the staff. So one of the ways in which we do this is through our staff desk. So you saw that there were 3 Moodle environments, the study desk, staff desk and open desk. The staff desk is where we do all our online training for staff. We train staff in how we expect them to work with their students, so in the online space. And for those who would like the extra, they can have a lecturer come to a workshop as well. However, so here's our Vice-Chancellor's cover page. So every computer in the university has its home page for the internet at this portal here. Up the top here, you'll see a range of buttons or icons, and they're all the training aspects at the university. So you'll see up there Staff LE, which stands for e-learning environments. There's the Staff Development Portal. There's Ask USQ for Staff, PLAS, which is, and I'll go through these 3 of them anyway. So at no point can the staff say, I don't know where to go and get my training. It's there in front of them. They can say, there it is. There's some other methods as well, so it's not just that. Okay, I'm going to take you into our staff e-learning environment page. So here we go. They're the tools we use for the context training. This is the context training. So we use, for example, obviously all universities do assessment, but we have assessment tools within our learning management system, Moodle. And so we want to talk to staff, provide them with some information about assessment. Up the top right-hand side there, you'll also see a question mark. That is another way of getting help, but I'll go into this one first. So in assessment, we take them in. We're then dealing with, okay, do you want to know about electronic assessment or electronic assignment submission and things like that, which are the main things you do within this environment, within the learning environment, with the learning systems. And then take them into, if I chose electronic assessment, take them into some, what is it? What would you like to use it for? Some benefits, help things around formative assessment and then summative assessment, etc. There's a little video from one of the Associate Deans Learning and Teaching up there that talk about the differences and why you'd use certain things. So these are all little videos. So I'll just say at this point that video is the new currency of higher education. I have no doubt in saying that. So we see Khan Academy, we see all the MOOCs that are out there, we see TED Talks, TEDx Talks. It's all video. Now, and why is it video? The people today are so used to experiencing media. It's about experiencing media. It's about hearing the human voice, not just reading. So we submit. So a lot of what we do now, particularly in terms of our training support, is through the use of video. Short, sharp videos. No more than 12 minutes. We see the curve in terms of concentration. It goes up and up and up to about 7 minutes. Plateaus at 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, and starts to ease off to about 12 minutes. After 12 minutes, goes right down. So we say 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes maximum in terms of your video presentations. And that's how we then want our staff to do it in their learning environments as well. Don't give us a 2-hour lecture. Don't do the lecture recording for 2 hours, stick that up there and expect them to learn. It doesn't happen. You need to break those up into smaller sections and dot them through the course. So let's deal with a topic. Let's deal with working hands-on with a lathe, for example. And let's do a 10-minute session on that, and then some support materials associated with that. Let's then get on to sharpening your tools or something like that. Don't give them that 2-hour lecture on that online space. Do it in short, sharp chunks. We call it scaffolding. We've known about scaffolding for years. We do it when we build buildings. Let's do it when we're building minds as well. Okay, the second one, it's Ask USQ for Staff. Remember, this is in the staff environment. And so Ask USQ for Staff is a knowledge base. So lots of people ask questions and want to get answers to questions. So they'll just put a simple thing into the knowledge base. You'll see underneath there, there's a hot topic there, the topics that have been hotly searched over the last little while within the knowledge base. So turn it in. Who loves turn it in? Anyway, so I didn't see any hands. Okay. So I've put in the search lecture recordings, and that then gives me straight into some how do I download a lecture recording, how do I migrate lecture recordings, how do I start recording using our lecture recording system and things like that. Next one. Next one is the personal learning environment for staff. So this is the pedagogy training. So the first one was the context training. The other one was the, now forgotten, and the third one is the pedagogy training. So pedagogy training is through our personal learning environments for academic staff. Here we have it set up for introduction. So it's kind of the induction stuff, I suppose, for commencing staff. So every staff member has to go in here and do some commencing modules and things in relation to using the online space. Information for current staff, information particularly for sessional staff. I have a whole range of issues around just sessional staff not knowing what to do because they don't necessarily do all the induction training that normal staff, full-time staff would do, and then obviously information about and things. In here we put in example courses, guided tours, FAQs and things like that. So that's the pedagogy training. So that is solely focused on how to teach better in the online space. Again, up the top right-hand side, you'll see the question mark, and they can always go to there if they need help. And that will either take them to the knowledge base and then take them out to personal help if they need to go the next step. Here's how the question mark works. So up the top here, you'll see, and this is in our study desk environment. So I'm in the study desk and I'm a staff member. I'm in the learning environment, so I'm not on that staff portal. I don't have that help things in front of me as I do on the top of the staff portal. Now I'm in my study desk where I am with my students. But if I go to the question mark, I get to the same links that I can get to across the top of the staff portal. And this is called triaging help. So it's ensuring that you can recognise where you're at and then take them to the right spot for help. Okay. Jeff Scott, who was the Pro-Vice Chancellor at Western Sydney Universities, done a whole range of research, buckets of research around the student learning journey. Now, I just want you to read that statement for a sec, please, while I have a drink of water. The students, they're discerning, but they're just in this online space. What do I do in this online space? How do I operate in this online space? Is it a learning interaction? Is it a support interaction? They don't care. We might differentiate it out, and that's fine, and we need to. But they want to just know about the quality. They just want to ensure that they're getting some help when they need some help. Particularly in that online space where they're sitting in their bedroom or their lounge room, they've got this computer in front of them, they're looking at this place, this thing, and thinking, I have no idea what am I doing? Why isn't this working? Why isn't it not doing what it's supposed to do? That's when we actually need to be there to help them. And we can do that online, and we can do that through the human voice, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. So what we've done, we actually looked at the different periods of the student learning journey within the university. So going through from decision to enrol, application to enrol, enrolment, the early weeks, experience in the first semester, continuing study, unforeseen events, completing study, graduation and alumni. And what we actually found out, there was about 150 different touch points at which we could touch a student learning journey, touch the students in relation to help. And so what we did is we then mapped out all those different touch points and made sure that we had resources associated with those different touch points. Now, they will not be dissimilar to the touch points you have. I'm happy to share that list of things with you, and I've got it in a fuller form than that. But that basically follows through the student learning journey and the touch points in which we would expect, which we've seen over the years, students would come to us for help in. Okay, now I did say that one of the key things we did were these people called student relationship officers. I really cannot emphasise this enough. I've spoken to a lot of student support forums over the years, and the message is the same. We just need to have that they want that personal support. They want to feel as though they're part of the institution. They don't feel necessary because they're enrolled and because they get sent a package of materials doesn't make them feel as though they're part of the institution. They do, to some degree it does. But there's that personal touch. The lecturer has them for 12, 14 weeks. They may never know them again unless they do multiple subjects with that same lecture. But potentially, they'll have one lecture for 14, 15 weeks, 16 weeks, and never touch that person again. And they might see them at graduation if they're lucky. So, student relationship officers, student SROs we call them, key plank, because they follow the students through that learning journey. Obviously, we have our other academic learning support groups, as you do, particularly if people are struggling with introductory concepts to communication studies or maths and computing, that kind of thing. Peer-assisted learning has grown massively over the years. So we had, that is, a student who's previously done the course, working with students who are currently in the course. And we pay them a little bit of money for that. And they work with the students through some of the harder concepts of the course, like an extra tutorial for the students if they want it. And we started off probably 10 years ago in 4 of the core courses that we had. We're now across 52 courses, I think it is. So we have all these students who have previously done courses working with students doing extra tutorials, not around the content necessarily, but more around studying and the things they need to consider as they're doing the course. Very successful program. We pay the students. We don't pay much at all, I'd have to say. But they love it. It goes into their e-portfolio. It goes into to make up part of their leadership attributes in their portfolio. I've talked a little bit about the retention strategy that was mapping out that activity as part of our retention strategy. Particularly the SROs are a major part of that retention strategy. but communities of practice, particularly for disciplines. So what we'll find within our nursing disciplines, our law disciplines, we also have not just the course Moodle site, we also have a program Moodle site, so students can interact with students in different subjects and across the discipline generally, first, second year, third years, fourth years, whatever it might be. So they can interact with each other as well, and we also allow people from the industry to come in. So we allow lawyers who will come in and work through concepts with them. That's particularly good for those courses that do work-based learning and things like that. So some of the people in charge of the work-based learning placements can be in those in that environment with the students as well, just giving hints and things. Graduate skills and capabilities, a lot of work we've done recently on mapping our graduate skills, and that's part of your quality processes that you're going through at the moment, where you have to align your learning activities with your assessment and with your meeting of particular skills, capabilities. E-portfolios is a major thing. We have, last time I checked, we had 31,000 student portfolios in the system. That would be, I think it's about 2/3 of those are active portfolios. So once a student, every nursing student, every education student, every art student has to, first activity of the first week into their course is setting up their e-portfolio ready for them to start creating their journey towards being a professional. Of course, closing the loop. Can't forget closing the loop strategy. So we get evaluations from our students every semester on the courses they do. What do we do with that evaluation? How do they know that we've heard what they're saying to us? We need to have a closing of the loop strategy. So, okay, we've heard what you said last semester, and here are the things we have done in this course this time to ensure that it's a better course. It's a couple of sentences. It's a paragraph in our welcome message that we might have online. It's not a big deal, but it shows them we care. It shows them we've listened to them, and so they're willing to then give us more feedback next time. So if you want to get your online evaluations up, show them you care. Give them the information give them some feedback on the information they've been giving you, because they want it better for them. We want it better for them. And of course, alumni do a lot of work, particularly in relation to social media with our alumni. So these student relationship officers aren't just that voice that people hear. They also are key to our retention management. So in the introduction week, we will do data feeds to them to show them who hasn't accessed the systems. And they will get in touch with that person who hasn't accessed the systems and say, are you struggling? We have to have an assessment item completed by the end of week 3 every semester. By doing that, we know if the students are engaged in the course. So at the end of week 3, we then get data from our systems to show that this student hasn't. The reason we do it in week 3 is because the end of week 4, they have the option to pull out without academic penalty. So do that at week 3. Within that week, if they haven't submitted their first assessment piece, it might be a quiz, might be a little written piece, whatever. If they haven't submitted it, they then get a phone call from the student relationship officer, or an email if they can't get them on the phone. Similarly, week 6, week 10, week 15, week 18, that's a little bit variable. That depends when the major assessments are set in the different courses, but as a general rule, there will be touch points, communications going out from the student relationship officers to the students. It won't be a phone call, but it will offer the option for the students to give them a call if they feel as though they need it. So I said, sorry, I briefly said that. So end of week 3 is about inactivity, assignment non-submission, and of course missed exams is a key point as well, which is usually in week 18 there. Because then there's ultimately students have to do, if they miss their exam, there's a whole range of processes that we have to go into if they miss that exam. My wife and I were in Sydney a few years ago, and we'd left our second son at home, looking after a couple of younger kids we had then, and he was at university. He was in second year university, and we're driving through Sydney. He said, Kim and I, my wife also works at the university, so we both work at the university. He calls us up. I slept in and missed my exam. What do I do? Panic. Okay, no, don't panic. We didn't have student relationship officer at this time, but if they had, we would have said, ring up your student relationship officer and get onto it straight away. Fortunately, they gave me a supplementary exam, but it happens. He was up till 3 o'clock in the morning studying for his exam, missed the alarm, didn't get to the exam. It happens. And that's just part of being human. Okay, a whole heap of online support we've developed over the years. I don't want to bore you with this, but really it's just a matter of targeting. And it goes back to those key points of the touch points that we looked at just before. Current students' website, down the bottom here, if they are struggling, look, there's the link to the student relationship officer. How about that? Particularly in terms of our learning systems and our technology support, we have a whole section on using the technologies in there in terms of learning support, which takes us to our learning centre. So we have online help in the learning centre there, and particularly for our students, online students, the study desk skills. That takes you to this page here, again, which is based on a knowledge base, and works them through all the major systems, the study desk, e-portfolio. So this is the student version of the staff site you saw earlier. We call this the student ELI as opposed to the staff ELI. And go to study desk. They're the major topics that are covered by the study desk helps. They can, of course, then watch videos and things like that again. And it'll step them through the process very quickly and easily. They can watch a video about it. If they didn't answer the questions, they can, was this helpful? Yes, no, and then they can go on and ask a further question, etc. It's based on a knowledge-based situation. So every question they ask is stored in the knowledge base, and there's an answer for that question next time somebody might ask that same question. Okay, and of course we promote that through posters and flyers and all kinds of things all over the place. We're trying to make it really, really hard for them to miss it. But funnily enough, they still miss it. But we make it harder for them. We've made it a lot harder for them to miss it over the years. Okay, the other key plank, I suppose, to the student support is what we call our academic success planner. And so, and this changes depending on what part of the semester they're in. So at this point, I took the screen grab. It was time for coming up to exams. And so the Academic Success Planner provides information around studying for exams. They'll go in, they'll answer a series of questions, but if they don't get the questions answered, of course there's the link to the Student Relationship Officer. So the loop always comes back to working and pushing towards a Student Relationship Officer. Okay, switching tack for a sec. That photo is taken in a prison in Australia. In Australia, prisoners have no access to the internet at all. No access. They cannot get to the internet. They're not allowed mobile devices, anything. So I would assume that's probably similar here. Similar in many countries across the world. They can get internet here? Wow. Hate to think what they're surfing. Anyway. I kind of liken this, I mean, it's not a prison, I kind of liken this to the fact that you've got a whole lot of campuses out there that have very poor internet. Okay? When you get sharing 50 megabytes or something across all those islands, that's an astonishingly low figure nowadays. Similarly, this is a little study centre inside the prison, no internet access, but they're studying UST courses. But all our courses are online. How does that work? Okay, so they have very restricted, limited access to computer labs as well, so they can only go to the computer lab, I think it's an hour a day maximum. They can go into the computer lab. There's limited movement, of course. Many of them themselves. In our case, there's also competition from other providers within jails. which have traditionally been the study package. And of course, when we started in prisons years ago, we sent them a package. Every student, every prison has a education officer, as you would have similar people on your remote campuses who work with the students and help them come to terms with the systems. And of course, there's frequent lockdowns. Oh, there's cyclones happening. Winston comes through, kind of knocks out a whole lot of stuff, and there goes your satellite for a while, satellite feed dish. So the frequent lockdowns, student can't get to their materials. So what do? Well, what we've done is we've brought in two technologies they can work with. We've brought in a server-based technology and a laptop-based technology. So that laptop, the student will hire for $4 a week. It's locked down from the internet. I can't even get to the internet on it. It's completely locked down, and it has Moodle running on it. Has all the courses that they have options to running on this computer, and they can take that back to their cell, and they can use it. The screen's made of plastic. They can't cut themselves with it. All kinds of things. So we run Moodle on that for them. The education officer, they'll do the assignments on there. The education officer will download the assignments and send them back to USQ on a stick, or upload them to our server situation we have in the prison. Easy peasy. It costs about $200, that. Really cheap, but really effective. So there there's also the PC-based scenario there, so it's working off that server there, which is sitting in the prison. That's what the previous picture was. They're the people that work on the laptops, and they're all loaded with the USQ study desk and designed to work without the internet. And that's, we have a hub which basically transfers all the courses to and fro. So, in simple terms, USQ offline courses, they're exactly the same as the on-campus courses, but run a semester behind. They do not, any of the links within those courses that did go to the internet have been neutralised, and the resources have been made available in the study desk environment. We harvest our study desk environment every semester, so all the materials that are housed within the course that might not have been put on in the right place in the repository are harvested back to the repository. We harvest the course out for the device and excuse me, loaded onto the server or the laptop. Actually, it's really simple. I don't know why we haven't done it years ago. We have been doing it for about 3 years. We started about 3 years ago with a very primitive version of that, and have matured it over a number of years now. So the USQ Online Study Desk can either be put on an enterprise platform or the network server. So we network to the prison server, then that's locked off, and the students basically work on their PCs. So the data feed once a day at whatever time of night it comes up, takes it back to USQ. Similarly with here, the personal devices, the education officer has a master device, basically downloads it back up to USQ. All the results are there. Working with the staff. It's just simple. It's Moodle. We're running Moodle. That's it. The little interface we've built. It's open source. We're happy to share it with people who want to use it. It's been built in such a way so it can be shared. That was part of the funding arrangement. So USQ's into open. We're into open resources. We're into open education resources. We're into open practice. And so we're happy to share that. Most of the software we use for our learning management is open, apart from the virtual classrooms and Turnitin. Okay, we're developing about 10 to 20 courses a semester at this rate, mostly in terms of parentry and Indigenous higher education pathway programs. Unfortunately, we have quite a high Indigenous population in prison, a disproportionate amount of, and basically it's because they don't get the education when they need it. So what we're trying to do is stop recidivism, that word, so they don't reoffend. So we try and educate them so they don't get back into prison. We offer the Diploma of Arts, Science and Business Administration as being introductory courses, and we've had about 1,000 enrolments, up to about 1,000 enrolments over the 3-year period we've been operating. How many students would you have on the islands? How many thousand students would you have out there on the islands? 55% outside Suva, yeah. Tasmania, getting into New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory as well. 66% completed courses. So those who start those courses, 66% doesn't complete those courses. That's pretty good. I think not that bad compared to our normal offerings. Difficult to track out longer term though, so we haven't done a lot of, because I'm going 3 years, we haven't done longer term tracking yet, but are working on that. And that's coming out of a project called Making the Connections, and there's a whole lot of information there that you can get to in your leisure. I believe the slides will be made available to you, so if you wanted to, you can go to that Making the Connections site and see some of the other things we've been doing in that space. Lots and lots of stuff happening in that space. Okay. Take a little break for a sec. Consistency. I think it's pretty consistent around the world that students, when we ask them what they want some consistency. They want consistency in how they're treated. They want consistency in how they go to an online space and can find their assessment. Where am I going to find my assessment? That's what they want. Where's my assessment? Okay. However, consistency is not sameness. And it doesn't mean you have to template everything. What it means is there's some clear indicators as where to find things. So it doesn't mean using a template necessarily, though to some degree it's a template. But it means what we do is we put some restrictions in terms of where people place things so that then on the other hand there's a lot more freedom. So I'll demonstrate that in a second. If we want our materials to be flexible, and here's the key, if we want them to be flexible, we need to provide consistency. Now I know it seems like an oxymoron there in some degree, but it's that level of consistency that actually makes it more flexible. It makes it easier to put them on that device, to get them out to the islands or into the prisons and things like that, because they've been set up in a similar way in terms of the assessments there. Here's the study schedule. Here's the list of resources. Here's the welcome message. It's always in the same spot, leaving the main body of the Moodle environment for the real meaty stuff of the teaching. Okay. So students do want to go from course to course and find, they don't want to have to relearn the environment every time they go into the course. So here's what our Moodle looks like. We've done away with the right-hand bar, the right-hand column, giving students more, giving the body of the course more space to work within. Down the left-hand side here, you'll see that's just a customised block within Moodle. In the old days, you would have just seen a whole lot of links in there. Now we've created buttons, so markers. Here's a marker. Here is where I'm going to find my getting started information. Here's where I'm going to find the list of forums. Here's where I'm going to find all my assessment items. Here's the study schedule. That's consistent across every course and is populated in every course. That's part of our wireframe. It's populated in every course. And our sports staff don't populate it. Our academic staff populate it because we've made it easy for them to populate it. And then we're basically working in the homepage environment of the Moodle, so the course activities area within Moodle. All these are calling on our dynamic HTML pages within Moodle. Okay, so the next stage. So this is what we're rolling out in third semester, and this is really neat, and I'm going to be talking about this at Moodle Moot in a few weeks' time. We've developed a thing called Flexi format. So you might be aware that in Moodle, you can either have it in weeks, or you can have it in topics, and there's another format, social format. What we've done is we've created a new format called Flexi Mode, or Flexi format, Flexi Mode format. And what it allows is, it allows for weeks and topics to be seen in the same course. So you can have your weekly information, but also you can set up a topic section. So you can introduce, here's this topic, and we're going to cover that topic in the next 3 weeks, or we're going to next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Here's another topic. I'm going to do some introductory stuff in there, and we're going to deal with that topic over the next 6 weeks. Okay? And so we can contextualise the learning problem a bit more in there, a bit more scaffolding within that space. Okay, so weeks and topics, that's the first thing. Okay, you do notice, of course, we've got so they're the topics. That's what the students saw. This is what the staff sees. Okay, so I've turned editing off. The editing is off at this point. Now, in here, to get information under the getting started and the assessment, there's some hidden fields. So what's that say? Course, getting started is hidden from participants on this page, and so editing's off. Okay, but the lecturer can see that, the students can't see that. And APA-style exercise hidden from students, so some hidden fields in there. You can see them as the lecturer as you go in. Students don't see them, they're in grey. I've turned editing on now. And I hope you can see this. So what's happening is here's the getting started information. Now that's my wife there, isn't she beautiful? She's missing me. I'm missing her. Getting started, so we've put this information into the getting started area here. Students don't see it there. They see it under the getting started information up here. So what we've made is so the lecturer can control everything, lecturer or designer can control everything from this middle section, but it's seen in other sections. So we've pulled in the formative assessment items here. There's another assessment item here. So we've added, so that's the formative assessment item. It's about APA formatting, I think it is. And we've put in other activities. Add an activity or resource. We've brought it in there. We can set it up in context. So here's your getting started. Here's the initial assessment activity. Here's the weekly activities, another topic, some weekly activities, some more assessment. All in order. So I can set it all out for myself and I can see when it's going to happen in order throughout the weeks and months that I'm studying. You see that as the lecturer, as the teacher, as the designer, so we've introduced extra things. So it's not just weeks and topics. We've introduced, so you can add assessment items, and you can add the extra getting started information and things. And turn editing off, and then it's seen. That information is seen under the getting started tab, not seen in the body of the course. So set it out, say no when it's all happening, in nice order, and then the students see it where they need to see it, underneath the relevant tabs. Okay, and so that's what the assessment items are all in one place, so it's looking underneath the assessment tab. And so we'd set that information up in the main body of the course. We don't have to reset it up underneath the assessment tab, it's just drawn into that assessment area. So there's all the assessment items they're going to do over that particular semester. That's my wife's 3rd semester course. She teaches psychology, introductory psychology. Okay, that's Moodle. But you know, there's so much more in this world than Moodle. Wish there wasn't sometimes, but there is. There's a whole lot of stuff out there and a whole lot of different tools out there that we can use. And so we need to be experimenting with them. Because our students are going to be out there working with those tools. Whether we like it or not, they're going to be out in the workforce working with a whole lot of things we don't understand. So we need to come to terms with that. Just as we have to be experts in our discipline, we have to be experts in the things that surround that discipline. So, selected social media tools. So, me as an academic, I'm going to use I'm going to use ResearchGate. I'm going to use LinkedIn. I'm going to use a whole range of other tools to support my professional persona, in a sense. Similarly, students need to be developing these to align with their profession in the future. Some of the tools we're using and experimenting with, things called Google tools, a whole range of Google tools in there. There's a new thing called VoiceThread. It's been around for a few years, but voice tools, the human voice interacting as opposed to just having a text forum, have a voice forum. Great for language teaching. Erasma is a is an augmented reality app. So who's heard of Pokemon Go? Here we go. We're going to go capture a few Pokemon. Oh, there's one there. Look at that Pokemon. Erasmus is similar, but it doesn't have Pokemons. What it does is augmented reality. So, for example, here's I'm in nursing, and I want to give that dummy an injection. So I hold up my phone and over the area, and all of a sudden it shows me what I need to do. Some of the things I need to consider when I need to put an injection in that dummy. It's really simple, actually. Surprisingly simple. And it's just the use of an app on the phone, on a mobile device, whether it be a Google Android phone or an iPhone. I haven't got time to go into all that now, but there's quite a lot of information out there. A lot of the tools now, Moodle, other learning management systems have what's called LTI, Learning Technology Interoperability. All the major sites use LTI as a standard, and so what we can do is we can actually use other sites, information from other sites in our Moodle. So if we know that there's something really important out there on Khan Academy or whatever it might be, some other open resource, Merlot, whatever it might be, Coal site or something like that, we can actually bring that into Moodle without having to actually physically pick it up and move it into our Moodle environment. We basically syndicate it into our Moodle environment using a thing called LTI, Learning Technology Interoperability. It opens up a whole world of opportunities for us to be real-worlding our courses. Open access libraries, buckets of them now. We really need to be getting into open textbooks and open education resources in a really big way. It's nuts. It is really nuts that we ask our students to do 4 courses a semester. They pay $300 a textbook, $1,200 gone just because somebody wants to get some money back from the publisher, $1 for every textbook sold or whatever it might be. That's nuts. They're making buckets of money. But our students are suffering because they're not getting the resources they need. So they have to share textbooks. They have to photocopy textbooks and things like that. Where we can simply use open education textbooks, open education resources for free. Sure, they might want to print them. That's up to them. But they're free. Okay. Getting off that little hobby horse there. And there are other tools that are, I don't know if you'd be using Blackboard Collaborate or Adobe Connect or something like that, but there's another tool out there now called Zoom. I think, do you have access to Zoom yet? You do Zoom? Fantastic tool. No access, they don't have to worry about your Java plugins and things. And over the last year, that has really taken off. We now make it available in our Moodle environment for staff to integrate into their Moodle courses. It's less expensive than alternatives, and students find it easier to connect using Zoom. But if you're in prison, what do? And that's why you use the course a semester later. You record that, make the MP4 available through the repository harvests the recording, it gets connected with the materials next time round. So greater use of repositories, minimise duplication of resources. So if I'm using a common video that I've made and I want that, so I teach an undergraduate course and a postgraduate course, but some of the information is exactly the same. I can use the one video, put it in the repository, link to it from multiple places. I make that available for other lecturers who may want to do it. So if I'm doing an introductory stats course on quantitative analysis or something like that, I'll just make the video, and I'm quite happy for anybody to come and link to that video in our repository. And of course, it gets harvested and put into the offline course. Maker spaces. This is a fairly new concept, mostly driven by libraries and things at the moment, but there's a huge potential for this within learning and teaching in terms of getting people just coming and experimenting. So with that Erasma app that we did, we basically opened it up as part of a makerspace. We just invited people to come, load the app on, and we worked with them just to start playing with it and to start putting things, to start getting their feet wet. And it's just a good time to come together, not preach at them, not give them the word like I'm doing to you, but get them to work together and produce something tangible for their course going forwards in a non-threatening atmosphere. Quality. Now, quality is obviously a key going forward here, particularly if you're going to get that accreditation, you need to be providing some quality options. How are you going to monitor your quality? Well, we have to monitor it as well. We have a group called TEXA, Tertiary Education Quality Agency in Australia, who register us as a higher education provider. They do audits every 5 years of us. We have a whole range of standards we have to meet. One of the things that USP was recently involved with, we brought 3 people from USP over to Canberra in the middle of winter, got to -4 degrees in the morning. They knew they were alive, or dead. What we do is the ACODE, Australasian Council of Online Distance and E-Learning, have benchmarks in relation to the use of technology-enhanced learning, and USP participated in that event in June, as did 26 other universities along with USP. And so what they did is they looked at their suite of technology-enhanced learning applications. They looked at the benchmarks and said, okay, are we doing some of the things that the benchmarks would suggest as good practice within this space? And they rated themselves, you rated yourselves against that, and then came and talked with the others who did the same thing in their own institutions. We came and shared that information. It's part of being a community. It's a huge community of practice in higher education across the Australasian sector, so Australia, New Zealand and the South Pacific. You use the e-learning maturity model. Great thing, in terms of assuring some quality at a course level. Very good tool. I think ACODE would like to develop a similar tool in the future to align with the institutional benchmark. But in the meantime, EMM, Quality Matters, that's what I'm talking about. You use Quality Matters. EMM is another tool which is a maturity model that Stephen Marshall from Victoria University in Wellington runs. I've used that at USQ as well. Quality Matters, excellent tool, and USP uses that very effectively as far as I am aware. Then there are other bodies that you're involved with, as we are. We're the Council of Australasian Directors of IT. You guys are involved. It's a big community of practice for those in the IT sector. KDAD, not so much New Zealand and Pacific at the moment, which is the Council of Australian Directors of Academic Development. They are looking to expand out into New Zealand and the South Pacific as well. And CORE, which is the Council of Australasian University Librarians. And you recently had a visit from some of those members here when they did the audit of your library and things. So they all have benchmarks. And so there are measures that you can use to say, okay, we're doing all right in this space, or we're not doing too well, we need to improve. What it does is it shows you where you need to improve in a non-threatening way. There's the ECAR survey, which is a survey came out of England, now used in America and Australia in relation to the use of students' use of technology. So what are our students using? Are they using mobile devices? Are they using laptops? We found out that 93% of our students use a laptop to do this study with. 93% of our students. So, 10 years ago it would have been a PC. And so we go forward with that thinking, we've got to do it on a PC. It's a laptop. 93% of our students use them. The other ones use a PC or a mobile device. Student evaluations and health checks. How are we ensuring that the evaluation, this comes back to that closing the loop strategy, how are we ensuring that those student evaluations are actually being listened to by staff? So we do what's called a health check after every semester. And so the academic staff sees the feedback from the students, and there's a whole lot of indicators in relation to, they're exposed to a dashboard that shows them the retention rate, dropout rate, that kind of thing. And then they have to respond to that. And that's the response, might only be a couple of sentences, is what's used in the feedback back to the students for the following time. And of course, that's all based on the use of analytics. Now, we're all struggling with getting up to speed with learning analytics. Every university in Australia is struggling with that, maybe with the exception of one or two who are a bit further down the track. But we're in the midst of a big analytics project at the moment as well, and closing the loop strategies, as I mentioned. So we're not an island. We are part of a greater thing, and it's around communities. and it's around people talking with each other. It's around what I did yesterday with the Learning Systems group, kind of come together and just talk through some issues. They didn't ask a lot of questions, but we got some talking done in the end when we started the community activity around food. So food's really important for community activities, I've found. And maybe a little bit of wine sometimes, some juice, coffee, great activities. Okay, ACODE is obviously a good example of that, and we have USP as a member of that. At an institutional perspective, that is. So as an institutional representative, you have a couple of institutional representatives. They join with other institutional representatives 3 times a year, if they can make it. And it's basically a big community practice for 2 days. We have in Queensland a thing called QPEN, which is the Queensland Promoting Excellence Initiative. So for some reason N stands for initiative, but anyway, initiative. So it's that's our local thing, but you have other institutions here. You have 2 other universities, 2 other groups of people who have learning system support staff and academic staff and things like that. They're part of your learning community here on the island. That's it. They're part of your community, as there are international communities as well. We use a model called community practice in a discipline-based model. So a community of practice works on 20 minutes of eating, 20 minutes of somebody sharing some thoughts, and 20 minutes of discussion. It takes an hour. And so we just share. And somebody will be designated to share for 20 minutes around something, some initiative they're doing, something interesting they're doing, something they've read recently they thought was interesting, and then you talk about it for 20 minutes, and that's it. Contain it within an hour. It's an easy professional development activity to run. A lot of them are done around the use of technologies. Particularly important, and I'll come back to that towards the end. There are conferences, of course, Moodle Moots and things like that, which people in the institution are involved in, and your own professional bodies as well, of course. LinkedIn ResearchGate is an international community now. So I publish some things on not Instagram, I do publish on Instagram as well, but on LinkedIn, and I put my publications up on my e-prints on the university, and then I link them out into ResearchGate as well. It's a great community. You know, on LinkedIn, LinkedIn and ResearchGate, you can have conversations around some of the things that you put up there with academics around the world. So I put up a research article into ResearchGate. There are discussion groups around, potentially around that, so people might make a comment. People ask for help in relation to research in the ResearchGate area. So I can go in and give some help to somebody, and then I could ask a question and somebody can give some help to me in relation to structural equation modelling or something like that, because I don't understand that very well. Commonwealth of Learning, you guys are pretty involved with the Commonwealth of Learning, done some great things with the Commonwealth. That's a huge community of practice, and a great community of practice to be involved in. EduCause is a more American-based one, but again, another huge community of practice. And of course, there are all the open journals that are out there that are also part of us as a learning community, learning and teaching community, because we don't have to pay for them. We have free access to them. They're open education resources, open research. That's how we become part of a learning and teaching community. We don't hide it behind walls where we have to pay for them to get them. That's not open. So we're availing ourselves of the latest open resources. Let's keep up to speed with the open stuff that we can get our hands on. So part of the open resources, of course, are through Commonwealth of Learning. There's buckets of stuff up there that you can get. If you're interested in the technology-enabled learning, that's where you go. That's what you pull down. So brought out last year, 2015, I think it was. Great publication. Just read through that. It gives you some great tips in terms of what you can do, particularly in some of the communities that don't have as good access as others. The Horizon Report comes out every year. There's an Australasian version of that, Australian-New Zealand version. That's that one there. Came out a few weeks ago, and it gives you horizon. What are we looking at in the future? What's on the horizon in terms of what's happening now or in the next year? What's happening over the next 2 to 3 years? Just for example, this is what they're saying is happening now, and it's true. Bring your own devices. So most of our students bring their own device to university. They'll sit there with their laptop open in front of them, plug into the PowerPoints that are in the lecture room because they need the power to power their devices, and flipped classrooms. I mean, we've heard about that for a number of years now. Particularly, I mean, I don't think you guys have a problem with the flipped classroom model. We didn't, because we've been distance education providers. But those universities haven't been distance education providers who have built their courses around the sage on the stage model have got some learning to do in this space. So this report covers all those types of universities. Learning analytics, big thing now and over the next couple of years. I was looking at an article online this morning that said it takes 5 years to get yourself organised for learning analytics. So from the time you start, it takes about 5 years to come to fruit. That's just based now on the statistics we've been getting from those who started 5 years ago, and they're just starting to get themselves together. Should be a bit quicker now, though, because we've got some learnings on the board. So we're going to learn from the community. Online learning, of course, we don't struggle with that necessarily, but there are many universities, face-to-face universities, that are just starting to realise, this learning management system can do a few more things than we first thought. We can start teaching some courses online. So they stick up a whole lot of PDFs and say they're teaching online. But so there's a whole lot of stuff happening in the online learning space at the moment. Over the next couple of years, adaptive learning technologies, location intelligence, makerspace, wearable technologies. I'm not going to bang on about them now. You need to download that report and start reading about them, because they're the things you need to start thinking about now, because they're the things that are going to be coming to you in this space in 2 or 3 years' time. Here we are. And again, 4 to 5 years' time, they say we'll be really doing more effective computing. Augmented reality will become the norm. So that Pokemon Go without the Pokemons, that's going to be the way it is in 5 years' time. Machine learning. So the computer actually taking on a lot more direction in terms of where a student is going to go. We already have that in Moodle. It's called conditional activities. And so we can set that up so students can take a journey through their course, and not all the same journey, not all the same way. Network objects, Internet of Things, that kind of thing. Again, download the report. It's free, it's open. And learn about those things, because they're the things that are going to be affecting our teaching, because that's what they're going to be working with in industry. That's what they're going to be playing with when they're out there in the workforce, these things. Okay. So, you're here in Suva, Fiji, you're present in all the islands and things like that. You can be leaders. You are leaders in your space, but you're part of leadership is being part of a community as well. Because you are not an island, even though you do live on an island. You're part of a broader learning community. And, but there's a reality to it. We have competition. We have other universities who are playing in the same space we are. So to some degree, we're part of that community, but there's also this notion that we are also have competition. So, as I mentioned just before, education providers are discovering the virtues of the virtual learning environment more and more, and are pushing very aggressively. So the Victoria University in Melbourne has just advertised for a Director of Connected Learning. So they've been a face-to-face dual-sector university for many years now. They've advertised for Director of Connected Learning. Why? They're pushing into the online space. They're pushing into the online space to create more opportunities for themselves, to blend their learning a lot more and things like that. Swinburne they've had a strategy along that for the last 2 or 3 years now. So expanding their offerings into the online space. In doing so, I'm just going to talk, as we close out reasonably soon, five things that we need to be considering as we move forward into this space. One is the notion of digital literacies and digital fluency. Next is leading the use of social media, informed student support, and I've talked a bit about that, so I won't go too much into that. Embracing learning communities, I've already touched on it. These are things I've been touching on as we go through. And practicing what we preach. Okay, let's hop into this last section. New digital literacies, fluency. We have digital students who are digital natives. They're digital natives because they use Facebook, they use Instagram. Some of them use Twitter. Not that many of the younger ones use Twitter. But they have not got a clue when it comes to a learning management system. So they might be fluent in the social media space out there. They're not necessarily fluent in the online space in terms of education, finding resources, how to syndicate resources and things like that. So there's some training we need to do with our students to make them more digitally literate or digitally fluent within the higher education space. Bugger me. Oops, excuse me. The staff. We've got a lot of staff that aren't digitally literate either or digitally fluent. So, if we're going to teach our students to do that, we have to do it first. So I've got to set up some social media sites and start playing in that space so I can understand what the students are doing, what they're involved with, because they are going to be doing it out there in the workforce. You better believe it. That's how they work. If they're going to be doing business, they're going to be doing electronic marketing. And that's how they're going to work it. So we need to be electronically marketing ourselves in terms of learning and teaching. Let's not think about marketing a product. What is? We're marketing a discipline. We might be marketing anthropology, geology, geography, whatever it might be. The 3G, that's the 3G network, isn't it? So we need to be working... but we do most of the things we do is online. And if we're not literate in the online space, what are we doing? So we need to make ourselves a bit more literate in that online space. So that's part of where universities are going in terms of their professional development and things like that, particularly for academic staff. And the use of adaptive technologies. There's a product called Smart Sparrow, for example. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's just come out a couple of years ago. Adaptive, so that it adapts the learning environment, helps the student adapt to the learning environment, helps the learning environment adapt to the student. So it will see if a student is failing some quizzes and things like that and take them in a different direction. So similar to conditional activities in Moodle, it looks at a broader range of things, can bring in other resources to help the student if they're struggling in a particular subject matter. And so it's how we implement something like that within, so it uses analytics at its back end and can see when if a student hasn't been hitting the systems and things like that, it will automatically prompt some activity for the student. So important going forwards. It doesn't have to be Smart Sparrow. We don't use it yet, but there are a number of universities that do. Now, I'll come back to that same point that I was talking about before. Consistency, not sameness. So part of being digitally literate and digitally fluent is being consistent. So if they go to Facebook, it's consistent. Yes, it updates itself every few months, 6 months or whatever. There's a major things, but it's consistent. They know what they're going to find every time they go back there. Same principle. That's how they become digitally fluent, because there's a consistency within the space for them. Okay, leading edge social media. So the LMS is not a walled garden. So it used to be. We used to have everything contained within the walled garden. So we would not allow students to use Facebook and things like that. We can't do that. They might cheat. Oh, but haven't they been sitting in the refectory or the cafe doing that for years? Exactly the same thing. Don't be scared of it. Embrace it. So we need to start embracing those environments. It's know that human personality is what it is. They will find ways in which they're going to collaborate, whether you like it or not. So we need to be open to the thought that they're doing that, and as much as possible, bring that into the learning environment. So don't make it put up walls to stop it coming in. Use things like learning technology interoperability to bring these things in. So if they're blogging, and you can syndicate the blogs into Moodle so they can be shared together. If they're using Facebook or Twitter and things like that, bring it in and use it to your advantage. Don't be scared of it. Augmented reality, again, that Pokemon scenario, which is not Pokemon. Using those type of social media tools. It is a social media tool. Operates on the phone or the pad and things like that. Syndication is key, using that learning technology interoperation. is key to bringing that stuff, social media, into the learning space and embracing that. But as I mentioned before, leading means using. Pregnant pause. Okay. The other use, of course, for social media in our particular context in learning and teaching is that it's a way in which we promote our ideas. So I might be a discipline expert, I'm an associate professor in learning technologies. So I use that to spread my ideas about learning technologies in a non-peer-reviewed way. So there are things I'll do in peer-reviewed journals and books and things like that, but there are more relaxed ways of doing it as well, which also go to making your credentials as an academic valid. So I'm not just publishing, I'm also spreading. I'm thought catalysing. So taking a thought, oh, that person said an interesting thing. I'm going to take that thought, acknowledge that thought, and add to that thought a catalyser effect of thoughts. And so that's how we spread through social media. It's a catalyser. Okay, informed student support, I've talked a little bit about that. It's really important as we move forward to thinking how am I going to implement learning analytics to actually make things more useful for my students, more helpful for my students, more helpful to our academic staff. So an academic staff member can see straight away if a student is struggling in their course and actually be able to deal with it if they can. So part of that was that triage help up the top. So on that triage, on that question mark that was at the top right-hand side, we've made a similar one for students. So I was in the study desk, and I clicked on that, and I saw the help for staff. But if I was a student, I would see the help mechanisms there are for me as a student. I wouldn't see the staff ones. So the system is smart enough to recognise if you're a staff or student and gives you the contextual help needed. Okay. The human voice, as we see through our student relationship officers and things like that, fundamental to student support. Personal learning environments, the use of, and I'm just summarising some of the points here now, which I've talked about earlier. Some of the personal learning environments, the e-portfolio, LinkedIn, things like that, incredibly important now for students to start getting. 2/3 of all the professionals in Australia have a LinkedIn account, and across the world. In America, it's even higher than 2/3. So 2/3 of all professionals have a LinkedIn account, a well-maintained LinkedIn account. Why? Because that's the currency of connection within the disciplines now. Authentic assessment, using more work-based learning, being able to bring that assessment back to the real world for the students. Incredibly important in terms of student support. And we are communal beings. So I'm just, again, reiterating some of the points I made before. We are communal beings, so we live for community. We are part of being this community. We're part of the community of USP, but we're also part of a university community. We're part of higher education community. And we do that through things like communities of practice. In a homegrown sense, it might be a community of practice for digital literacy that we run within a discipline. It might be some discipline-based community of practice, like if you're in the arts faculty, technology, how I might use technology in the arts or something like that amongst your peers. There are the national bodies like ACO, KDAD, things like that. And also the international communities, the open education practice communities and things like COL, etc. So, practicing what we preach. That's where the rubber meets the road, unfortunately. So our learning and teaching department, as I hope others do around the world, need to be leaders in these areas. So we need to provide mentorship. And we need to flip our own learning. So when we do professional development, we need to flip it so that the person who's participating in that knows how to flip it when they come to do it with their students. And be thought catalysers. Because being thought catalysers actually helps us to become thought leaders. So the more we practice catalysing our thoughts, the more we start stepping forward. Oh, there, look, I'm making some steps forward, small steps forward. But as I take those small steps forward, I'm actually leading. I'm leading others. Come with me as we take this journey together about being thought leaders. It's not about creating better packages. It's not about that at all. It's about facilitating better learning and teaching options and opportunities for our students. So it's providing them the options and the opportunities. It's not through the bang, 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 bang. It's providing options and opportunities for them to engage in the discipline that they're going to be involved in. How am I going to engage as being a lawyer? How am I going to engage as being a nurse? How am I going to engage as being an engineer? Here are the options out there. There's a world of options for them. Being thought leaders and thought catalysers is about great learning and teaching ideas. You who are in disciplines, there are ideas around the use of technology in those disciplines. Start catalysing those thoughts. Spread them out through your networks. So we are part of a global learning community, and I would encourage you to be involved with that global learning community, to be involved with us if we can be. I'm more than happy to come here anytime and work with you guys to do this. Others are willing to help. So you're not alone. You are not alone. You have disciplined people in other universities who want to be involved with you. Because we can't do it by ourselves. We've been bagging on this for years. We've been trying to do this for years. We don't have to do it by ourselves. We are not alone. We are not an island unto ourselves. Thank you.